7 days after the most controversial match of the 2026 FIFA World Cup, the referee at the center of it all was gone. François Letexier, the referee whose decisions produced an Egyptian formal complaint, a review announced by L'Équipe, social media fury that crashed one of the sport's busiest servers, and a level of global scrutiny that no referee at this tournament had previously experienced. He will officiate no more matches at the 2026 World Cup. And the story of why he was removed is both simpler and more complicated than anything the headlines have suggested. Because buried inside this story is a truth that FIFA has not advertised, a truth that raises its own uncomfortable questions about accountability, about timing, and about whether football's governing body avoided the hardest part of Egypt's complaint not through courage but through coincidence. This is the full story of how Letexier's World Cup ended, and what it means for everyone still watching. When L'Équipe, France's most respected sports newspaper, confirmed that François Letexier and his compatriot Clément Turpin would no longer lead a match during this World Cup edition, the reaction from the football world was immediate. Egypt's supporters celebrated. Commentators who had spent the previous week questioning Letexier's performance against Argentina described the news as overdue. And across social media, the narrative took shape with the speed and certainty that the internet applies to every story. Egypt had complained, FIFA had acted, justice had arrived. But the full picture is considerably more layered than that version of events allows. FIFA operates a long-standing protocol at the semi-final stage of the World Cup. It is not a new rule. It is not a rule introduced in response to any complaint. It is an automatic pre-existing standard written into FIFA's refereeing framework, specifically to prevent conflicts of interest in the latter stages of a tournament. The rule is straightforward. Referees who hold nationality in any of the 4 semi-finalists, nations are automatically excluded from officiating any remaining matches in that edition of the tournament. Not as punishment, not as a response to performance concerns, but as a precautionary measure to ensure that no official could be perceived of having a national allegiance to any team they might be called upon to govern at the most critical stage of the competition. France qualified for the semifinals by beating Morocco on the 9th of July. The moment that result was confirmed, every French referee at the tournament was automatically ineligible to take charge of any remaining match. Letexier and Turpin would have left the officiating list regardless of what happened in Atlanta, regardless of Egypt's complaint, regardless of any review, regardless of anything. They were going home because France were in the semifinals. Nothing more, nothing less. And yet, the timing of that departure, arriving in the same week that Egypt's formal complaint against Letexier had been filed, that FIFA had confirmed a review was underway, that his social media presence had been shut down entirely in the face of online abuse, and that the football world had spent 7 days examining every decision he made in Atlanta, frame by frame, created a picture that looks considerably different from its technical reality. FIFA did not remove Letexier because of Egypt's complaint, but it cannot deny that the circumstances surrounding his departure have made it almost impossible for the football world to separate the two things cleanly. To understand why this matters, you have to understand what Egypt actually asked for when they filed their complaint. Their formal submission to FIFA, signed by Egyptian Football Association President Hani Abu Rida, named Letexier and his entire crew specifically. It called for their removal from the remainder of the tournament pending investigation. It cited 3 specific incidents: the disallowed goal for a foul committed 25 seconds earlier, the unchecked shirt pull on Fati before Enzo's winner, the Salah penalty appeal that VAR reviewed and dismissed. Egypt's complaint was not asking for a retroactive change to the result. It was asking for an investigation and for the people they held responsible for the result to be prevented from influencing any other match at this tournament. The result, technically, is that Letexier is no longer at the tournament. Egypt asked for his removal. he has been removed. The reason for that removal, automatic protocol triggered by France's progression, is an explanation that FIFA has communicated in the most minimal way. And the football world, in the absence of clearer communication, has drawn its own conclusions. This is a governance failure of a specific and particularly frustrating kind, not a failure of action, but a failure of explanation, a failure to tell the truth of what happened clearly enough that it could not be misread. Because the truth, told plainly, contains a question that FIFA should have been forced to answer in public. If France had not made the semi-finals, Le Texier would still be at this tournament. Egypt's complaint would still exist, the review announced by L'Équipe would still be ongoing, and the man at the center of the most controversial match of the 2026 World Cup would potentially still be available to officiate its later rounds, while the formal complaint against him remained unresolved. This question, what would have happened to Le Texier if France had gone home in the quarterfinals, is the one FIFA has been allowed to avoid by the simple fact that France won. There is also the matter of the review itself. FIFA's Referees Committee, according to L'Équipe's original report, confirmed in the days following the Atlanta match, was examining complete match footage from the Argentina-Egypt game, audio logs between Le Texier and the VAR room, official match delegate reports, the specific incidents cited in Egypt's complaint. All part of that review. The committee's conclusions were expected before the quarterfinal stage. FIFA has not published those conclusions. No press conference has addressed them. No statement has confirmed whether the review found evidence of systemic errors, whether it identified a breach of officiating protocols, or whether it cleared Le Texier of any wrongdoing. The review was launched. The results have not been shared. And now, with Le Texier no longer at the tournament anyway, the pressure on FIFA to publish those findings has diminished to almost nothing, because whatever the review found, the practical consequence its most severe outcome demanded, his removal from the tournament, has already occurred through a completely separate mechanism. Football's governing body has, perhaps through no deliberate intention of its own, ended up in a position where the most significant formal referee complaint of the modern World Cup era produced an outcome that looks like accountability from a distance and contains something considerably less definitive upon examination. The human dimension of this story deserves acknowledgement that the institutional argument can sometimes obscure. François Le Texier is a professional, a trained official who has earned his position at this tournament through years of work at the highest levels of European football. He was the referee at the 2022 World Cup final in Qatar. He has made decisions across a long career that earned the trust of UEFA and FIFA's refereeing committees at their most selective moments. On the 15th of July in Atlanta, two nations will walk out onto a football pitch carrying 60 years of history between them. And for the first time in the history of this fixture, the weight of that history will be matched by the weight of what has happened off the pitch in the weeks before they meet. England against Argentina, a World Cup semi-final, at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, under lights bright enough to be seen from space, watched by a global audience that may be the largest ever assembled for a single football match. And already, before a single ball has been kicked, the conversation surrounding this fixture has reached a level of intensity that no other match at this tournament has produced, not because of a tactical preview, not because of a goal Messi scored or a save that Martinez made, but because of a referee appointment, a historical exclusion, and a pattern of decisions that has followed Argentina through every round of this competition. This is the story of the match that has become something bigger than football, and why the eyes of the world are watching it in a way they have never quite watched a World Cup semi-final before. Start with the appointment, because the moment FIFA confirmed the referee for this fixture, the football world did not simply nod and move on. Ismail El Fath, 44 years old, American,
a referee who has officiated 3 matches at this tournament, including Japan versus Netherlands, Uruguay versus Spain, and Brazil versus Norway. 6 yellow cards, 1 red, no major controversies, a clean record. But there is a detail buried in El Fath's biographical connection to this tournament's storyline that stopped the internet in its tracks the moment his name was announced. At the 2022 World Cup final in Qatar, the match that crowned Argentina as world champions for the first time in 36 years, Ismail El Fath was on the pitch, not as the main referee, as the 4th official, standing on the touchline, watching Argentina defeat France, present in one of the most significant moments in Argentine football's modern history. His name, therefore, exists in Argentina's recent record at the precise moment their greatest achievement was completed, and the football world, primed after weeks of controversy to scrutinize every officiating appointment at this tournament with maximum intensity, did not let that detail pass without comment. FIFA's appointment has already raised eyebrows, according to multiple reports, and while no credible analyst has suggested that serving as 4th official at a World Cup final 4 years ago creates any meaningful connection between a referee and one of the teams in that final, the timing and context of the announcement mean that eyebrows once raised at this tournament are not easily lowered again. Because the appointments around this match carry another layer of complexity that is less about perception and more about documented institutional policy. England's own referees, Michael Oliver and Anthony Taylor, have been excluded not merely from this match, but from any remaining match involving either England or Argentina. Even, sources have confirmed to ESPN, the final itself. The reason for their exclusion from Argentina matches goes beyond the standard conflict of interest protocol that removes referees from their own nation's games. English referees are not put forward for matches involving Argentina because of the political history between the two countries and the legacy of the 1982 Falklands War. That policy is not new. It was applied at the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. Anthony Taylor was under strong consideration for the final, sources told ESPN, had France played Croatia. Argentina's presence ended that possibility. The same principle applies here, and it has been applied consistently across tournaments for years. But read that sentence again. The Falklands War, a conflict that ended 44 years ago, a geopolitical event that has no connection whatsoever to the football played by either nation's current squad, and yet its shadow is considered significant enough by FIFA to influence the appointment of the people who govern their matches at the World Cup. If a 44-year-old war can be deemed relevant enough to shape a referee appointment, the football world might reasonably ask what FIFA's threshold is for acknowledging that more recent events on a football pitch are relevant too. And then there is the historical echo that no scriptwriter could have constructed deliberately, because the story of England against Argentina in 1966 was the story of a referee's decision, the story of Antonio Ubaldo Ratin being sent off in the World Cup quarterfinal in Wembley by German referee Rudolf Kreitlein, in a match that produced chaos and fury, and an Argentine captain who refused to leave the pitch, who sat on a carpet reserved for the Queen, who crumpled a corner flag pennant. And the consequence of that 1966 controversy was the introduction of the yellow card and red card system at the 1970 World Cup, the visual language of football discipline, used in every match at every level in every country on Earth for the past 55 years.
Antonio Ratin died on the morning of Argentina's quarter-final against Switzerland, on the day his nation played a match that produced its own controversial red card under a rule that had never previously been applied at a World Cup. And now England and Argentina prepare to meet in a semifinal, 60 years after Ratin's dismissal at Wembley shaped the modern game. History does not repeat itself, but sometimes it echoes so precisely that the difference feels academic.
Now, the pattern that this tournament has established around Argentina must be stated plainly, because any honest examination of what this match means requires that context to be on the table. In the opening group stage match against Algeria, Lionel Messi was not shown a red card for a foul on defender Aissa Mondi that multiple analysts suggested warranted one. The tournament began with a decision that, in isolation, would have generated moderate debate and then faded. In context, it became the first link in a chain. Against Egypt in the round of 16, Zico's goal was disallowed for a foul identified 25 seconds earlier on the other side of the pitch. VAR did not check the shirt pull on Fati in the immediate build-up to the winning goal. VAR reviewed and dismissed Egypt's penalty appeal for Salah. Egypt's coach used the word cheated in a press conference. Their federation filed a formal complaint naming the referee and his entire crew and demanding their removal from the tournament. And now Elfath, who stood on the touchline in Lusail Stadium on the night Argentina became world champions, will stand in the center circle at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta and referee the semifinal. It is vital to say clearly what the evidence does and does not support. No credible investigation, no formal finding, and no verified documentation has produced any evidence of deliberate bias or organized match manipulation involving Argentina at this World Cup. The Egypt complaint remains formally filed and formally unresolved. The Switzerland red card was a technical application of a new rule, contested by Switzerland's coaches and players, but defended by analysts who reviewed the footage. The Messi incident was a judgment call that reasonable people assessed differently. But the cumulative picture those incidents create across 6 matches involving multiple different referees and VAR officials, producing multiple post-match complaints and multiple moments where the outcome favored the same team, is one that FIFA has so far addressed only through statements that speak to refereeing integrity in general, rather than to the specific incidents that have been formally documented. And into that picture walks England, a team that has navigated its own controversy at this tournament. The camera cable incident against Norway that FIFA's own censor said had no contact, while Fox Sports replays appeared to show the ball striking the wire above the pitch. A VAR decision that allowed Bellingham's equalizer to stand. A goalkeeper save from Harry Kane's penalty appeal that the referee waved away without a review. Both teams have benefited from decisions at this tournament. Both have also been on the wrong end of them. That equivalence does not cancel the pattern that surrounds Argentina specifically, but it is the context in which Wednesday evening in Atlanta must be understood. Elfath therefore inherits a match unlike any other World Cup referee has faced in sport's modern history. Every decision he makes in either direction will be examined with a level of scrutiny that the appointment itself, with its 2022 final footnote, has only intensified. A yellow card for an English player will be a yellow card. A yellow card for an Argentinian player will be the start of a conversation about simulation protocols and mistaken identity rules. A penalty to England will be celebrated by millions and questioned by millions more. A penalty to Argentina will be viewed through the prism of every disputed call this tournament has already produced. That is not a comfortable environment in which to referee a football match, and it is not an environment that FIFA's handling of the past 3 weeks has done anything to improve. Because the deepest truth about this semifinal is that the conversation surrounding it need not have reached this level of toxicity. Each individual incident across this tournament could have been addressed more transparently, more promptly, and with greater honesty about what the evidence showed and what the rules required. The Balogun reversal could have been explained in full. The Letexier review findings could have been published. Colina's statements could have engaged with specific incidents rather than asserting general integrity. The armband denial could have been communicated directly to the French Federation before it became a miscommunication played out in front of the assembled press.